Man, you don't always have to have 100%, but you always have to give 100% of what you have. You're not always going to feel super energized, but on those days when you're not, give all that you have to give. I like to think of it like showing up with the consistency of the sun. Things are going to happen in life, things are going to happen throughout your day, but the certainty that you have in yourself has to be equivalent to the certainty that you believe the sun is going to show up tomorrow. Show up with that level of consistency. You don't question it. Whether somebody dies, whether something bad happens, whether your car breaks down, you always assume with such confidence that the sun is just going to show up tomorrow. And you need to have that same level of belief within yourself. You're not always going to feel 100%. You're not always going to feel 1000%. And that's okay. But just have that level of 100% consistency. Because over time, you'd rather have that consistent input rather than waiting for those perfect conditions. So many times I found myself waiting for the perfect conditions and the perfect timing. But that doesn't exist. There's not the perfect timing. You just have to show up with imperfect action. And as you take the steps, the things will begin to reveal themselves. If I didn't show up here today because I thought, you know what, I need to get a haircut, or this isn't looking good, or maybe I need a better background, I'm not happy with this, or something unfavorable happened in my day, I wouldn't be able to be here for you guys. I wouldn't be able to share some insights that I'm going through. Show up with the consistency of the sun. We put that, like, the level of faith that you'd put into your brakes on your car. You don't put that level into yourself. You just assume with such confidence that said thing is going to happen. But imagine you had that same level of confidence with the assumptions that you make for the things that you want to achieve in your life. Where would you be? What would the amount of progress, what would that progress look like? What would it feel like if you were someone that consistently showed up with what you have? Because again, we establish it's not always going to be 100%, but you have the choice to show up consistently with what you have. That consistency is what compounds. It's not the one time that you're waiting for the perfect conditions to show up, because the perfect conditions rarely come, if not never come. And it's not to say that those things are impossible. It's just when you weigh up is improbable. So the frequency that you show up is going to increase the chances of your success. You don't have to have 100%, but show up with 100% of what you have, and you will always have more favorable outcomes. So even those days when you're not feeling it, at least just give enough of what you're able to give. And that's better than not showing up at all. And these analogies, they're consistent throughout nature. They're consistent throughout, if you look at processes such as eating right, eating at the gym, it's not the one day that you eat super clean, it's the consistency of overall having a better diet. And it's the same thing with maintaining your physique in the gym. It's the same thing with maintaining a certain level of, cognitive function. These things are maintained by the constant inputs that you have, not the one time that you show up, you know? Think about even trying to learn something. It's not like you can just learn to speak in one day as a kid and you just show up. It's not like you learn to drive in 1 minute. It's the consistently showing up. And the best thing about this is when you consistently show up, even on those days when you don't bring 100%, they're actually the days where you get the edge. They're the days where you get a level of understanding that you wouldn't have had you have just shown up when you're 100%. So what do I mean by that? For example, when you're driving, if you're driving a manual car, you figure out certain things about the biting point and when to change gears. Not on that day when you're super confident about driving, but on the day where you've just shown up to the point where it's beginning to become autonomous. You're beginning to really download the movements and the muscle memory into your subconscious. you can apply the same thing in basketball when you're getting your reps up. It's not the day when you feel the best, it's the day when you're feeling 80% and you choose to go to the gym and you try something at the end of the session. You try and lay the ball up off the glass at a certain angle. And that's where you create a deeper level of understanding. But had you not shown up on the 80%, you wouldn't have got that. Because when you're 100%, you're usually going to stick to the things you know. Those days in the gym where you try that different machine and you get a different pump, and then now you include that into your workouts, that is where you get the difference. The days when you get familiar with eating in a certain way and you actually think, do you know what? I prefer eating clean rather than having the salmon chicken today. I'm just going to have the grilled chicken. And rather than having the salmon and rice, I'm going to have the chicken and rice and swap that out. You become familiar and you build the trust within yourself during those times. So, yeah, I was just thinking it's always the times where I'm not feeling 100% where I learn something that you wouldn't be able to learn when you're ticking over. It's almost like when you're sparring, when you're boxing, you really get to learn about yourself in those adverse situations. You don't learn about yourself when you're punching a bag. You don't learn about yourself when you're punching the bag because the bag's not throwing anything back. And I think that metaphor can be translated into areas of your life where you're going through the adversity and you're trying to push yourself through. And that's where the punches are coming back. And that's when you learn really what you're made of. Because anyone can show up when it's sunny, but are you going to show up in the rain? Anyone can show up under perfect conditions, but are you going to show up to take off when there's a little bit of wind? Or are you going to be scared because you're thinking about the future, or you're thinking about the past? You're thinking about the future when you take off. Oh, maybe there's gonna be a little bit of turbulence. Or are you going to take off anyway and know that you have what it takes to fly through? It won't last forever. That rainy season, it doesn't last forever. This too shall pass. Remember that. Even if you're in the deepest, darkest place, remember the last time you were in a place similar. Did it kill you? It may have been uncomfortable, but it was likely something that was necessary to take you to the next level. So you're getting consumed by a moment when you actually have it within your control, and you can begin to train your mind that these are necessary parts of the process. They're not steps that can be skipped. You're not always going to feel 100%, but you have the option to choose to show up 100% of the time. And when you detach self from making these decisions and you know that you're actually showing up for other people, that's when you can begin to get the best out of yourself, regardless of how you feel. Because there's a bigger picture, there's more. Like, what is your why? What's the burning desire? Start to attach that to your levels of consistency. I know it can be difficult in those rainy seasons, those times where it's just never looking like it's going to be bright again. But you can push through. And the reason I'm saying you can push through and I believe it is because I've been in those situations. And I know that you can push through, take me out of the situation. I've been through it. That's the reason I want you to push through. But you've been through it. You've been through challenging times and you got through it right. And it's not only that, it's almost sometimes you forget the wisdom that that process would have taught you. Yeah, your business failed. Yeah, you were unable to get this. That didn't work out for you. But even if it's not immediately, what usually happens? You get another opportunity. Now you've got a bigger play. What if you were being guided into something that was actually meant for you and aligned with that winning season? I think you make the most progress in your losing seasons, and your winning season is a test of your character. Like, what are you built of now? Because understand that it's going to pass and there's going to be a time when you're in your winning season, but do you want to get to your winning season and then you haven't cleaned up certain things and your foundations are not set? Because that's when life will always bring in a cycle, or will bring in a process of showing you until you learn the habit that's necessary for the next step. So what I mean by that is you can be in a constant process of, you know, ascension and then dipping and then up and then down and up and then down until you're ready to maintain that level. But a lot of the time, maintaining the next level is from the foundations that you put in the trenches when it's that rainy season. You know, a lot of the biggest breakthroughs are when you're going through something crazy because you're strapped for resources and you're really hungry for it. And that's when you really lock in and you say, you know what, I'm going to cut the alcohol. I'm going to cut the smoking down. I don't want to do this anymore. Why am I going to party and be around people I don't want to be around? Let me cut the vices. Let me drop the addictions. Let me limit this. Let me actually focus on my health. And then you're going to begin to ascend. And then you're going to be met with a test that is at the level of the person that you've become to get there. So just see it as building the fortitude to be able to deal with the test so you can maintain the next level rather than dipping back down. And show up with the consistency of the sun. You've got it, man. The way the sun shows up to nourish everyone else, that level of consistency you have for the people around you. The way the sun shows up to shine, the process of photosynthesis, giving the electrons, the chlorophyll hitting it to give life and sustenance to things. Selfless. It shows up. It's not getting anything back. The sun's not getting anything back from the plants. Is the sun getting anything back from giving you a tan on the beach? No. Selfless. It shows up with that amount of energy. That's the amount of energy you have to have burning within you, where the next day comes, you're recharged and you pour out that energy into other people around you. It's the most selfless process, selfless act. And I like to attribute to things to nature because it's so practical. Whenever you're feeling down, even if it's raining, even if it's a day that's not the hottest, you can look at the sun and think, damn, look at the consistency of this for me to be able to exist. And for some of you, you need to understand you need to have the strength of character to show up with that consistency for the people around you because they're going to need you. You know, there's going to be times where the days are a little bit shorter. That's when you're at the 80%. The days are a little bit shorter. The sun's not going to be out as much. And there's going to be days, yeah, you got it, summertime, you're out early doors, out all day. But you got to show up regardless. Show up like the sun. I like that one. Damn, that was a good one. Show up like the sun. You got this, man.